Welcome, everyone. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we work to bring you people talking about all kinds of cool ways that they are using innovation, entrepreneurship, education, and otherwise to improve their communities and help those in need, to foster interesting ways of seeing what can happen when we use technology and our brains and creativity in totally cool ways. This week we have speaking with us Ben Schumaker, and Ben is the lead of the Memory Project. I'm really excited for him to tell you about all of the cool things that have been a part of this amazing project. So you know, Ben is in Wisconsin, in Madison, Wisconsin. He got into doing this kind of thing after doing some work in an orphanage in Guatemala, and I look forward to finding out how that path progressed. So members and guests, please welcome Ben Schumaker.
Thank you, Rushton, and thank you so much. Thank you so much to the members and guests of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley for joining me and for listening to my little story about how the Memory Project got started and what it's all about. So I'll just jump right in to the some photos I'd like to share. We have here basically the story of how this project got started. As Rushton mentioned, after I was volunteering at an orphanage in Guatemala back in 2004. And what you're looking at right now are examples of finished portraits for children living in orphanages all over the world. So the story begins that I finished undergrad, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself, but I knew I wanted to spend some time traveling, volunteering, and learning Spanish, ideally. I'd never really done anything with children before, but I happened to find online this, a little website tucked away about this little orphanage in Guatemala where volunteers could come and just basically live for free and help out with the kids in exchange for, having a bed to sleep on and some food to eat. And that was exactly what I was looking for, and that fit my budget. So I went down to Rio Dulce, Guatemala. Now, this orphanage was interesting because this river right here was actually the only way to get to the orphanage. It's completely cut off from any kind of roads or any land transportation options at all. So you basically take a boat to get there. And when you arrive, of course, the first thing you notice is that there are just kids hanging out everywhere, kids on the dock, kids swimming, of course, in the river. And it was very hot there, so swimming there was the perfect way for them to stay cool. So I went down there as a sort of general volunteer, but the odd part of the story was that I had read on their website that they had this list of urgently needed medicines, it said, for our clinic. So I worked hard before I came to gather these donated medicines to match the things on this list, and I showed up with this big bag full of medicine. And I showed up there only to find out that their clinic, so to speak, was really just sort of a wooden shack that had a whole bunch of old medicine in it that was all expired, and that website, I came to find out, was years out of date. They once had a doctor who was volunteering there, but he was long gone. So because I was showing up with all this medicine, and they didn't have anyone doing anything with healthcare. By the way, I've since visited, over 100 orphanages all over the world, and this one was actually one of the worst I've ever seen in terms of, how poorly managed it was and just how few resources they had available. Really just trying to scrape by, from week to week. So they essentially, it actually was only run by other volunteers, and the woman who was sort of in charge of the place was a volunteer who had been there for just about a year, and she was maybe 28 from Spain. And she said, well, do you have any healthcare training at all, any first aid training? Would you sort of do something with healthcare here with all this medicine that you brought? So long story short, it ended up being totally inappropriate. I mean, it was just, kids came to me showing all sorts of different skin rashes, and some of them had parasites, they had lice, and I just felt totally demoralized, not being able to do anything about this. I only stayed there for a month, actually, and I said, this is just way over my head, this is crazy. So that's when I left. But before leaving, I just happened to have a conversation with a man who had grown up in an orphanage himself there in Guatemala, not the same one, but a different one. But he came by this orphanage just for a day, I guess just to check it out. And he noticed that I was taking photos of the kids on my camera. And he said, you're taking these photos, and, when you go home, you should really have a set of these photos developed and send them back here so that these kids have copies of these photos. He said, I grew up in an orphanage in Guatemala here. I don't have any photos of myself as a kid. I don't really have any special keepsakes at all to help me, to give me that sense of, how my life story began, something I can hold on to and say, this is from that time period. So that really struck me as being quite profound, because I had been so overwhelmed with this, kind of crazy medical situation I had fallen into. I had totally overlooked different ways that maybe I could be of some service to the kids. And so this actually sparked an idea, because I had always loved doing portraits in high school art class. I had done portraits for a couple friends, family members, my high school girlfriend. So I knew that that could be a very powerful way to connect with someone on a real human-to-human level, and to study their face, to study their eyes, their smile, and really try to capture them in a piece of art. And I thought, well, that would be something if we could not just give photos to the kids, but if we could have talented high school art students study those photos to create beautiful paintings or drawings that we could give to them as well as special memories of their childhood. And that was the idea for the Memory Project. Just a couple other photos here. And this little girl is Angelica. Everyone I've ever talked to who spent any time at an orphanage talks about how you really connect to one child in particular. Just it's uncontrollable that one kid really pulls on your heartstrings, makes a connection. And for me, this girl was Angelica. And I actually tried really hard to find a family to adopt her after I returned home, and I was unsuccessful, but thankfully she ended up being adopted by a family in Denmark. So she is probably about a 15-year-old living in Denmark right now. So anyway, going back to, there we go, there's me with a few kids. And so here's just an example. This is me as a child. I have a huge number of photos and other things from my childhood, my family. We have family memorabilia, keepsakes. I have a very coherent narrative of my life story. I know, any month, I can just ask my mom what was happening. I can look at photos. My daughter, this is my daughter the day she was born. I think in the first year of her life, I'd hit, over 5,000 photos of her. And this photo shows this party we had for her. This is her in the middle. My wife is holding her. And I put this photo in there just to show for any average kid here in the States, or who's has really a strong family on both sides. It's amazing how many people are there to offer support throughout their lives. And here my daughter is just this little newborn, and she has all these people who are going to be, part of her life, supporting her. And you compare that to an orphanage situation where, you might have a couple caretakers who are really invested, but other than that, you're sort of cut off from this entire huge network of support. Oops, I got out of here. Just a couple other photos of my daughter. Just, again, I have so many pictures of her. And this photo I put in just because I get a real kick out of it. If you don't know what's going on there, you can see these are my legs. I'm behind this red blanket, and my daughter is there in my pants. So we have all kinds of photos telling how our life went on that we can look back on and help remember. So maybe I won't leave this photo up. It's kind of silly. But actually, I'm going to click back to me so we can see me now. Let's see here. Stop sharing. Okay.
You can just click on that. Oh, you got it. You got it.
Okay, so you can see me now. So yeah, so that was the idea behind the project, and after that, it was simply a matter of coming back to Wisconsin. I started in the Masters of Social Work program here at the University of Wisconsin at the same time. and I actually didn't have any idea what I was doing in a social work program. I had just applied to it for no other reason that they didn't require the GRE, and every other grad school program I had looked at did require the GRE. And I thought, well, this might have something to do with, working for social good, humanitarian stuff. So I said, well, let's try this out. But really, during those 2 years of the social work program, I was totally obsessed with this idea of the memory project, and starting to contact high school art teachers, starting to contact orphanages around the world and saying, hey, could we arrange to get photos of your kids, and I'll send them off to these high school art teachers, and their students can create the portraits, and we can give them to the kids as gifts. And actually, I just remembered, I'm going to go back into screen sharing here, and I forgot I had just a couple of photos down here. So these are just, in the past 12 years that this has been going on, we've created more than 80,000 portraits for kids around the world. And here I just grabbed 4 photos just to show this. Going back, this is a girl in India receiving a portrait, a boy in El Salvador, a girl in Sierra Leone, another boy in El Salvador. So that just to give you, again, examples of the portraits. And that's essentially it. It's a very simple program. We gather photos of kids in orphanages, and we've since expanded to other types of situations, children who are perhaps living with families, but in really a situation of poverty, and they go to kind of a day center or preschool just to get a square meal every day. Or at the moment, I'm actually trying to arrange something to create portraits for children living in a Syrian refugee camp in Jordan. So, trying to involve other children, not just focusing totally on orphanages. But that's it. We create portraits for kids. We give them to the kids as gifts, and everybody wins. So, Q&A time.
That's amazing, Ben. Man, that is so beautiful. A connection of an idea that kind of met between the heart and the head, and realizing it through getting this organization going. And so tell me again, what year did the Memory Project kind of properly start, would you say?
Well, I was at the orphanage in Guatemala in September of 2003, and then I didn't really start contacting high school art teachers and such until the fall of 2004. So I think if you look on our IRS documents, it would say we were founded in October of 2004.
Okay, and so you're a 501c3,
right?
And
yeah, I'm the only full-time person. This is my gig. We're actually in a room in my garage right now that is essentially my office, my little workshop. Most of my day is spent just on the computer, emailing with art teachers, sending photos around, answering questions, and I have 3 great people who help me out. One of them lives near here, and she is kind of an assistant who handles, this school year, for example, we are doing 17,000 portraits. So we had a big bump. Last year was 13,000, and this year it bumped up to 17,000. So she handles these 17,000 photos, mails them out, all that stuff. Receives the 17,000 finished portraits back that come through our houses, both of our houses, as we do different things with them. And then I have 2 other people who have a unique position. They are a husband and wife team, and they actually just travel. They do all the travel. I used to do almost all the travel. But for the past 4 years, I've pretty much just been focused here on, directing things. And they spend half the year just flying around the world delivering portraits. And when they do that, they take a video. They're kind of videographers for the trip, and they take a video of the kids getting the portraits. And in fact, if you're guests and members, check out the little video that we've posted here. It's just a 2.5-minute video. It sort of shows some clips from those deliveries.
Oh yeah. And matter of fact, that video people will have seen when they see this, if they are watching this in our meeting.
Perfect.
I'll also post a link, because there's a 7-minute video as well. Is that right?
Yeah. On our website, there's a 2.5-minute video and a 7-minute video if you hunt around for it.
Cool. Well, we'll make the links kind of obviously available kind of in our setup for sure. So I want to introduce the other people on the call and get them to add their comments and questions. I know I could keep asking questions all day, but we'll limit it to our usual amount of time. And so you'll also find on this call in Nairobi, Kenya, one of our board members, Sviatko Chidorov. Sviatko, welcome.
Sviatko.
And here in Northern California, our membership chair, Shags Shagrin. All right.
Thanks.
And in Brockville, Ontario, Canada, we have Chris Cochran. So right there.
Hello, Chris.
Our PR guy. And it is huge fun for us to be able to do these kinds of talks because we get to meet interesting people like yourself and start sharing ideas. So I see that our three guys at this point are muted. As soon as they unmute, I'll know that means that there is a comment or a question ready to go. Sviatko, start us off.
Ben, this is really, really cool. Thanks so much for sharing that story. Can you tell us a bit more about how that process works? Like, how do the high school teachers, how do they find you, or do you go seeking them out? And then on the flip side, the kids that benefit from this project, how do you seek those out? Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was starting this, in the first couple years, I was really trying to get the word out, and I was actively contacting high school art teachers in any way I could think of. I was, just looking up on websites in Wisconsin, finding the art teacher's email address, sending them an email. I got into sending mass emails to principals to say, please forward this to your art teacher. There was an art supply company that sells art supplies to schools that they heard about the project and put it on the front page of their catalog and brought me to a couple of the national conferences. So it started to get out that way. And thankfully it's spread pretty well through word of mouth in the art education community. I would say in the past 5 years, I have not. The only thing I've done in terms of trying to market to art teachers and get more art teachers involved is that in August I will download a list of 5,000 high schools and the mailing addresses from the Department of Education, and I'll just blast out a postcard that says, art teacher at whatever high school, here's a photo of a child with a portrait, please join us. So I send out a postcard mailing like that every August, and it's thankfully art teachers share it with other art teachers, and they're doing a lot of that work for me. The process of getting finding which organizations we are going to create the portraits for, it is much more involved and takes a lot more time. And actually, I'm very much deep into that process right now, trying to arrange the organizations for the next school year. So essentially, what I do is I just Google, different. I'll Google children's charities Colombia, because every year we do this for about half a dozen different countries, and so I'll Google children's charities Colombia, thinking that we haven't done Colombia in a few years, and I always try to find a country in Latin America, a country in Asia, a country in Africa, Eastern Europe, sort of have an assortment of countries around the world. So I'll think Latin America, okay, let's start in Colombia, and then I'll look at what charities I find and see which ones seem like a good fit. Start contacting them. Just this morning, actually, I was trying to get in touch with a charity in Jordan that is working with kids in the refugee camps, the Syrian refugee camps. So I had sent them an email last week. I'd sent a couple people an email. I was getting bounce back messages saying, this, it didn't go through. So just this morning, I woke up, the first thing I did was I called their office in Jordan, and I don't speak a word of Arabic, but, I said, English, United States, and they said, 1 minute, and got me on with the third person they passed me along to spoke some English, and I just asked her for an email address, and I emailed her, and she emailed back, and it's pretty much just like that, just trying to reach out, and I would say half of the time we end up being able to take it to fruition. Half of the time they just don't have the capacity for it, or for whatever reason the logistics aren't going to work out, the timing isn't going to work out. But yeah, it's an ongoing process for sure. And to that extent, anyone listening to this, if you know of a great children's charity that seems like a good fit for this, especially with you being in Kenya, we'd love to make portraits for kids in Kenya. Just let me know. Anyone's, please. I'm always interested in contacts for new children's charities.
That's fantastic. I can't wait for our member in South Africa actually to find out about this as well, because his school does a lot of work with with schools in townships down there. So
perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Utilize the Rotary.
Sorry, I can think of at least a couple organizations based here in the slums around Nairobi that would probably love to be a part of this project. So maybe I'll connect with you after this.
Please, yeah, please do. That'd be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, one logistical question. Actually, before I do, I see Chris is on. Chris, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to make a comment. My best friend is part of the Canadian Embassy in Jordan right now.
No way.
So if you need help in Jordan, let me know. I'll introduce you to, and I'm sure Doug, who's a former president of a Rotary Club, would be more than willing to help.
I need that contact. I do. I actually reached out to the U.S. Embassy there in Jordan, and I did get an email back from them, sent another email, still waiting for another one. But yeah, that would be terrific. I'd love that. Thank you.
Okay, so if I get your email, I'll connect you guys by email and take it from there.
Very cool. Thank you.
That's good. So in terms of the pictures, so obviously the connection has to happen between you guys and the orphanage or other entity. Once that's done, do you rely on the pictures getting taken by people there? So you're not sending people there in order to take the pictures that become the pictures that the students work with in creating the portraits, or do you send somebody there?
Usually not. You're right. Usually it is trying to get that organization to take the pictures themselves. If they aren't able to do that at all, I say to them, well, can you hire a local professional photographer and we can pay for it? That's another thing, is that so this whole thing is funded by participation fees. So basically, for the high schools here that participate, we ask them to give $15, 15 for every student that participates. And so basically, that money is 99% of the funding that the Memory Project gets, pays for all of the printing of the photos, my staff time, the 3 other people, the traveling to deliver the portraits, and then for every country, we're able to usually give a donation, $4,000 or $5,000 to the organization that is working with us. So as part of that 4,000 or 5,000, sometimes we can say, hey, that donation is really meant to reward them and compensate them, knowing that if this will require some staff time for them, usually, if they're going to photograph, 800 children, I mean, that's a lot of work. So, yeah, ideally they can take it. If not, we hire a professional local photographer. Usually don't send someone there to take the photo specifically.
Wow, fantastic. All right, so now, you said you've done over 80,000 photos in the last 12 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it's grown. The first couple of years, there were just a couple thousand art students each year, and then it was around 5,000 for a couple of years, and then it jumped up to 6,000, then 10,000, and it's in the past 5 years, it's grown by 1,000 or 2 students every year, and yeah, I think we're sitting right, probably more like 85,000 around now. So yeah, I would love to hit 1 million before I die or retire. We'll see. I'd have to grow a considerable amount to, you have to really continue growing every year in order to hit 1 million. But it's kind of a little dream I have.
Well, I hope your board is focusing on making sure that you're contributing to a retirement so that all of that works out, right?
Thank you.
Fantastic. Shags, do you have a question or a comment for Ben for the work that he's doing?
Well, having been a photographer in high school, I can really appreciate what they're doing. I was the one who Every time the reunion came around, went through my darkroom files and dragged out the negatives at that time and set up the enlarger, went to print. And my daughters both were so captivated by that process that they both took photography classes and snatched all my film cameras from me.
That's awesome. Yeah, photography is so powerful. You know, I love doing portraits, but I feel just as drawn to photography. And my dad's a photographer, amateur, but yeah, I'm obsessed with photos, to be honest with you.
I have a great collection of antique cameras that my grandfather had, and I even took a box camera when I was a kid, bought film, and it worked. So I can attest to the power of the images and the memories that it brings back when you view them. So keep up the great work.
Thank you very much.
A lot easier.
So a couple of shout outs that we should toss out on this, because this is going to be one of those things that gets shared, all over the place, and we're going to get lots of great comments in the section down, a little farther down on our page. But two big shout outs. One is to our own member Keith Marsh in Marin, north of San Francisco. We call him the camera czar because he takes all these amazing pictures of the places he goes, and so. We're hoping that we can get kind of an interest in a photography affinity group. So like our members who are mostly in Northern California, but around the world, can start saying, okay, hey, I took this picture, take a look, see what you think. Maybe we can get you involved in that in some fashion. The second shout out is to an art teacher from whom I learned about your work, and that's Peggy Farrell at Serra High School in San Mateo. Our members will remember we had a presentation some weeks ago from Christian Clifford about Junipero Serra's history. Same school, and so all kinds of fantastic and interesting people can be connected through whatever group that you see on a regular basis. You just start talking about, who do you know that's really interesting? Oh, check this project out, and suddenly you're seeing this. So you mentioned that these are high school art programs. Have you also worked with, say, college art programs, or is it mostly high school?
Mostly high school, but yeah, as many. It's not at all limited in any way. There are middle schools, there are even some elementary schools that will do a sort of a collage portrait where they will cut out the child's face from a photo and then make a sort of collage of artwork around it and make it look really neat. And there are colleges, universities, some colleges and universities do it as part of a class, but others are just, it'll be a group of college students, usually one of which did the memory project in high school and then said, I'm in college, I'd like to organize a group, and we'll just do it, independently. And actually there are adult artists who are not in any school at all. We have a lot of individual artists who sign up to do one portrait. One or two portraits. So really anybody is welcome. It just so happens that the format fits best with high school art classes and high school art clubs.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And so one of the things that people will see after they've finished this, if they're on our site, which is they'll see the link to memoryproject.org, so that they can come and see you there. Are you also on Twitter at Memory Project, or?
Actually, social media is an interesting beast for this project because of all of the concerns about children's privacy on the internet and protecting identities and photos and such. So I actually do not have any presence whatsoever on any social media platform as a way to ease the concerns of when we reach out to orphanages and other such groups, to say the photos we get of your kids, we're not going to be putting these on social media. That said, the artists, the art teachers and their students, of course, they then end up with these photos, they end up with the artwork that they create. They put it all over social media. But we always, it's part of the policy to never tell anyone, none of the teachers or the students, where the kids are located or the name of the organization we are partnering with. All they would ever know is that this is a child in India. They have no idea what organization. And that's where we're thinking, well, we know they're going to put it all over social media, but if it's just a rather anonymous child from India, probably no harm can come from that. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer to say I'm not on social media.
No. Actually, but a really interesting component of the work you do,
Yeah.
and probably a good place for us to wind down as well. We've kind of run through our time. What I'll do is finish things up and then ask you to give us kind of a final statement for the members and guests watching this, anyone watching this. But Rotarians who are joining us this week, make sure you tell us you are here. So there's a little thing to fill out, just a little bit farther down, where you put your name in. Assuming that you're not a member of this club, then you properly put in your email address, and that will generate an email that allows you to pass along to your secretary for a makeup for a missed meeting. And then for everybody, visitors, guests, anyone who comes across our page on this, we want you to leave a comment. So there's the Discuss section, DISQUS, and you can log in by either creating a Discuss account or through your Facebook or any kind of other possibility there, and just let us know. Let us know what you think of this program, of the other things that you've seen as a part of the meeting that we have this week, and we always love getting some feedback on the work we're doing and how we might improve it. So with that, I'd like to finish up by passing the mic back to Ben to give us a final thought.
And I would only say thank you so much for listening, and thank you for all the work all of you Rotarians do. I love meeting Rotarians wherever we go in the world. Rotarians always are up to so many great things and are so interested in connecting with other people. So kudos to all of you for all the different ways in which you help people all over the world as well. And thanks to you as well.
Awesome. Everybody, we hope to see you again next